11 hours before, a man is passionately eating his dinner in a restaurant. Our first protagonist Jeff approaches him and asks if he will order anything else. The man demands a hamburger and that it be fulfilled as soon as possible. After a few minutes, Jeff takes the order from the kitchen and goes with it to the restroom, where he urinates on the hamburger. We move on to meet our second hero named Mike. He's working in an office, going through a pile of documents. Suddenly he gets a call from Jeff to remind him that they're going to play a game tonight. Suddenly, Mike's boss walks in and praises him for his efforts. He brags about buying a brand new car and tells Mike that if he keeps trying, in 10 years he'll be able to afford one too. We move on to our third character, whose name is Greg. He works at a terrible job, which consists of spinning a sign on the street with the name of the place and luring customers. Mike calls him and reminds him of their evening gathering. He then accidentally drops the sign, which is picked up by a hot woman. It's their neighbor who starts flirting with him and hints at various vulgarities. After Greg's awkward responses, she leaves and he continues to work. We move on to Jeff, who returns home in his car and meets a hot neighbor named Shauna in his front yard. Jeff decides to approach her. An awkward conversation ensues in which Jeff fails to hit on her. A cool car drives by and Shauna says it's her boyfriend. Devin gets out of the car and meets Jeff. Devin admires the fact that Jeff lives next door to Marcy's hot mom, but Shauna realizes he's overreacting and calms down. Devin announces that they're having a party, but they can't invite him because there will be cool guys there and he won't fit in. Jeff goes home and turns on the TV and changes channels, where they tell him about a virus that is killing many people, but Jeff doesn't pay attention to it. He feels that he stinks and goes into the shower. In the shower, Jeff remembers the moment when he was rejected by Davin at the party and says out loud how he should have responded to him then. While in the room, the news is interrupted by a breaking newscast that says the dead are rising everywhere. End of episode 1. Friends, mini pause. Activity on the channel is dropping, so I really need you. Pause this video, put a like and write any comment. This will allow my video to get into YouTube recommendations. Thank you and enjoy your continued viewing. Jeff gets out of the shower and wants to watch TV, but none of the channels are working. Without paying much attention, he turns on his Xbox and starts the zombie game Dead Rising 2, and starts smashing zombies all over the place. After a couple minutes, his friends Mike and Greg join him. They begin to banter with each other and smash zombies. They are joined by another player named Roger, who they are not happy about for some reason. Greg starts discussing The Walking Dead and expresses his displeasure that the show starts off monotonously like a lot of other zombie movies. Greg insists that it would be cool to see a show that shows exactly how the zombie virus came about and the beginning of its spread. Jeff and Mike don't support him and say that no one is interested. They continue to enjoy the game and Mike doesn't notice that it's 9 o'clock at night. He tells his friends that he has to leave soon because he has a date with Laurent. It also turns out that Mike is moving in with his girlfriend. Jeff jokes to him that the girl is making Mike do push-ups in exchange for sexual intercourse. They continue to banter with each other and eventually Mike can't take it anymore and throws the game joystick. Moments later he appears in Jeff's room and a fight breaks out. After a couple of seconds Greg joins in and it turns out that they all live in the same house. Jeff grabs a flare gun and eventually Greg tries them on. But not for long. The guys start slapping each other. Eventually Mike loses his temper and says he's glad he's moving out, since they have their childhood in the same place so far. Suddenly they hear some moaning. They realize it's their neighbor Marcy and start peeking at her through the window. But they can't see anything, only moans. Suddenly the doorbell rings, and the guys think it's the new neighbor coming in for an interview. They move away from the window and there's a bloody hand on the window. Mike goes on a date, and Jeff and Greg talk to the new potential roommate. A man named Brian doesn't look very healthy. At some point he stops answering questions and starts acting even weirder. The guys decide they need to talk one-on-one, They begin to suspect that he's a bit mentally retarded. Greg thinks it's worth saying no to him. At this point, Brian sneaks off to another room. The guys go to tell him no, but they don't find him. They start looking for him around the house. Brian sneaks up behind them and attacks Jeff and tries to bite him. In the end, the guys miraculously manage to lock themselves in the next room, while Brian keeps banging on the door. End of episode 2. The guys sit in the room and hear Brian trying to break down the door. Greg thinks he must have been the one who heard them call him retarded. Jeff opens the door and takes a picture of Brian. They start studying the picture on the computer and come to the consensus that he is a zombie. Jeff calls the police, but the lines are busy. Greg starts posting on social media about the zombie infestation. At that moment, Mike goes on a date with Laura. You can hear the police blinking all around. Laura calls him and they discuss domestic matters. On the other line, Jeff calls and tells him to come home immediately. Jeff informs him about the zombies, but Mike doesn't believe him. Suddenly, Mike slows down as there is a body lying in the road being devoured by a zombie. Greg and Jeff walk around the room and figure out how they can kick the zombies out of the house. They open the door and use an umbrella to push it into Mike's room and lock it up. They call Mike again, but the answering machine goes off. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door. They open it and there's Shauna. Jeff awkwardly greets her. Shauna asks if they have Red Bull. Brian growls from the room and Shauna thinks about leaving, but Jeff stops her. Jeff brings in 2 bottles of soda and assures her that it's a great cocktail remedy. Jeff insists that he will carry her drinks home himself. Greg is clearly not happy about this. They walk to the house and have a nice conversation. Jeff is still trying to hit on Shauna. From behind, Davin suddenly comes up behind them and scares Jeff. He takes the soda from him and they leave. Jeff runs back home. Brian is heard trashing the room he was locked in. Suddenly the power goes out. You hear Brian's zombie succeed in breaking down the door and getting out. Jeff and Greg tensely don't know what to do now. End of episode 3. Mike gets to Laura's house and gets a call. It's Jeff, who asks him not to hang up. Jeff yells that there are zombies at home and tells Mike to look around. Mike also notices zombies outside. Mike is shocked at what is happening. Jeff tells Mike to come home. The call cuts off and Mike is attacked by 2 zombies. Mike manages to fight them off with a bat. He goes up the stairs to Laura's apartment. With bat in hand, he moves around the apartment looking for Laura. She comes up behind him and scares him. Laura calls him out for a run, but Mike informs her that they need to talk urgently. She thinks he wants to confess to cheating, but he tells her there's a zombie infestation in town. But Laura doesn't believe him and thinks he's gone crazy because of his computer games. At this time, Greg and Jeff are sitting on the floor at home with a flashlight in their hands. Greg begins to reveal his secrets, using the example of what he's done in his pants at school. Jeff is puzzled by what's going on, but Greg replies that he wants to reveal secrets before he dies. Jeff reassures him and tells him they'll get through this. Suddenly, a zombie breaks a window and sneaks into the house. Jeff recognizes Marcy's neighbor from her tattoo. They come to the decision that they need to blow her head off. Mike tries to find some news about what's going on. He calls Laura and shows her the hashtags on Twitter about the zombie invasion. Mike informs her that they need to go to his house. Laura doesn't want to go to his stupid friend's house. At the house, Jeff and Greg come up with a plan to attack Marcy's zombie. They decide that Greg will take her down with a shovel. Jeff diverts the zombie Marcy's attention to himself, and Greg uses the shovel to stab her in the neck, but does not kill her. Zombie Marky breaks free and lunges at them. At Laura's house, Mike does push-ups from the floor in exchange for intercourse with Laura. Laura visits her friend's page and becomes convinced that zombies exist. Mike insists that they go to his friend's house, as they only have a chance of survival if they stick together. At the zombie house, Marky attacks Greg and almost devours him. But at the last moment, Jeff blows her head off with a flare gun. Laura and Mike arrive home. They enter the house and see Jeff and Greg dragging the body of Marcy's zombie. Laura passes out from what she sees. End of episode 4. Laura is lying unconscious on the couch surrounded by guys. She wakes up, and Jeff tells her how he blew Marcy's zombie head off with a flare gun. Mike commends him. Jeff says that he has scrutinized Marcy's body and concluded that they are dealing with a type 1 or 2 zombie. Jeff and Greg start telling Laura about the types of zombies, that they are divided into fast and slow. Suddenly there is a growl from the next room and Laura and Mike are startled. They recognize that it is another zombie Brian locked in the room. Mike says they have to deal with him, but Jeff says they don't have any more ammo for the gun. They start fighting over the fact that Jeff bought a gun with only 1 round. Suddenly, they hear screaming and see panic breaking out in the neighboring house where the party was. Someone knocks on their door. They open it and see Shauna and Dave drunk. They tell them that everyone in their house has gone crazy. Mike lets them in the house. The zombies start walking down the street. Shauna and Laura recognize each other and that's when the lights come on. The zombies get into the house and the guys start confronting them. Greg blows a zombie's head off with an advertising sign. Greg brings out a katana and Mike starts stabbing zombies with it. Shauna is attacked by a zombie and is saved at the last moment by Jeff killing a zombie with a bat. Several zombies break through the window and Laura kills them with a dumbbell before passionately kissing Mike. Zombies begin to fill the house and Jeff orders everyone to run to the garage. In the garage, Shauna thanks Jeff for saving her. The guys take a breather and have a drink. They open the garage, throw a burning bottle and attack the zombies. End of season 1.